How are you? Thanks for the applause. It's Kevin Kenny. This is the Build Series live from New York City, and our guest today has a brand new album out entitled My Finest Work Yet. Please, let's give a warm welcome to Andrew Bird. What a modest title.
You know, I don't know what to say about that. It's not in my nature to say such things, which is why it's kind of funny.
But when it is it, you got to call it like it is, right?
Perhaps it feels like an important piece of work. So I've made 14 records, so at this point, it's I can have some fun with it. You know?
Yeah, you've earned the right to say that. Speaking of having fun with it, I wanted to talk to you about this relationship you have some interesting thoughts on between comedy and music. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you feel like a comedian on stage.
I do. I play a lot of shows at Largo in Los Angeles, which is an unusual place that where you share the stage. It's like a variety show between great comedians, and you do a couple songs, and then so it's a strange shift. So someone will be doing a joke about pizza, and then you come and do a song that's like you've been working on for years, and that the audience expectations shift when you do that. Like, oh, here comes the guy with his thoughts and feelings he's going to express through song after this kind of irreverent comedy. But on stage, I still feel like I don't pretend to be anyone else. I just kind of this shrug of the shoulders thing, like, I don't know, folks, kind of.
Right.
I feel like a comedian sometimes.
You're getting laughs already. That's better than some comedians I've seen. Mm. Have you toured with comedians, or did I have that wrong? Did you maybe I'm thinking about these shows you do?
A while back, I did a tour with Eugene Merman opening up, and I'd like to do more in the future because it's just fun, to have someone telling stories before you play instead of music.
Yeah. Do you find anything inherently funny about music or performing? Like, I don't know if you're somebody that gets nervous before performing, but almost like kind of like laughing at maybe the absurdity of just.
I think a lot of musicians tend to take themselves quite seriously,
right?
And that's a little hard to watch sometimes.
Yeah.
And of course, I take myself seriously, but it's like, I don't know. For me, I feel like there's an opportunity in songs for humor, at least some self-awareness, like I like to, in the middle of a song, kind of poke fun at myself for getting so dark about something.
Yeah, keep yourself in check there.
Yeah.
Is there any comedy happening here to our side? Can you kind of, not to give away all the secrets and the mysteries of the art, but what is the concept here that we're looking at for the album artwork?
Well, I came across this painting by David. It's from the French Revolution, and it involves the assassination of this poet Marat. But I think it really reads more as like the suffering poet on his deathbed, penning his final words. Mm-hmm. So I thought that played off the title, "My Finest Work Yet." Kind of over dramatize it to comedic effect. But there was in the original painting, there's like a stab wound here, and this is a bathtub full of blood. But I decided to lay off the blood on this. Yeah.
Maybe a good call.
Yeah.
You know what I took it? It's funny how you can just interpret things differently. It's like that old adage of like, find what you love to do and then let it kill you.
Uh-huh.
A little bit of that maybe.
Yeah, how so with this, though?
Oh, well, here you are, doing what you love to do. You're writing, you're creating art.
Oh, God, I got
you're dying.
it. Yeah. It's killing me.
I think you're dying.
Yeah.
That was a bath. I don't know. I was reading Rolling Stone. I don't know if you ever get a kick out of like how creative people get with their reviews. Like you make this body work, and then somebody can just like use all these big words to try to like articulate what you were trying to articulate in the music. Yeah. And they say you unspooled. Oh, what do they say? You accurately unspooled the circle of life, or an ambitious take on the. That was it. You unspooled an ambitious take on the circle of life.
Oh, who said that?
Rolling Stone.
Oh,
yeah. What does unspool mean?
I'm not sure what that even means.
I don't know either.
That's poetic, but I don't really. I mean, I guess in my songs, I'm trying to talk about things that I don't feel like we're talking about as a people. So I tend to gravitate towards subject matter that some people might think is arcane, but I kind of like the darker, weirder corners of history. And
give me an example if we have like a casual fan watching right now that hasn't heard the record yet.
There's a lot of historical references and mythology in this record, and there's a reference to the Spanish Civil War, Catalonia in 1936, and that just comes from reading George Orwell's account of the Spanish Civil War. I don't expect people to be, have a degree in this stuff to know what I'm talking about. You can just look it up in 3 seconds, but
Yeah.
It's just just trying to reframe the conversation we're having as a people, and I like a dialogue. Like when I'm on stage, I like to feel like I'm in a dialogue with the audience, and I don't like to shy away from like difficult subject matter.
Yeah. Is that where this idea of like our enemies make us whole come from?
Well, that's kind of my. If there's a thesis to this whole album, that's kind of the idea. Like what's happening here in our culture now. There's always been that tendency to be attracted to our adversaries throughout history, but it's been amplified by social media to a frightening degree in the last few years, and it's just the way that's spinning out of control. But I'm just fascinated by that idea. I mean, the first record cover I was thinking of was just two elk with their horns locked, and they are stuck. They can't, and they're face to face, and there's this kind of intimacy and a codependence between enemies.
Yeah. It's interesting. So is it a good thing in your opinion, or is it a bad thing that our enemies make us whole?
It's a bad thing because it's filling something that's missing
Right.
in ourselves. That need for an adversary is filling something that would be way more healthier to fill it with,
So is there a healthy way to do that, or is it never healthy? Because you think about somebody, right, who's like been told when they're younger, like, oh, you're never going to be anything, and they use that adversary in a beneficial way for themselves. So is it all about how you approach the adversary?
I just don't think just finding. I think there's like a George Saunders story that I love. That's about this guy who's just has no purpose in life. He's kind of a loser. And then suddenly there's like a disease that affects all the dogs in town that makes them attack people. And he suddenly becomes full of like purpose. He's going to eradicate all the dogs in town. So it's like sometimes that purpose gets filled with this all the wrong intentions. You know what I mean? That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like it's we need purpose, and you need, that is a good thing, but when it gets directed towards something so self-destructive and wrong.
How do you find your purpose as an artist? Like, what motivates you if it's not an adversary?
Just waking up and thinking, I could write that song that gets everybody singing the same tune.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's kind of a idealistic notion, but it's like maybe today I could write that melody that gets under everyone's skin and they can't help but whistle it, or it's just.
It's really funny, if I can just interrupt you really quick. You saying that, to me, when you say, I think of like great pop records, right? That they're really like, sweep the nation, if you will. But I've heard you say like that you actually don't think music is formulaic at all. It's the opposite of mathematics. But then like a pop record like that, to get everybody singing along, there is somewhat of a formula to that, right?
It doesn't have to be. Okay. It doesn't have to be. I just never. My verses and my choruses, it's hard to know which one is which. You know what I mean? Sometimes the verses are more catchy than the choruses, and everyone just assumes the choruses. You get that to the chorus as quick as possible because that's where the money is. But I don't think that's healthy to do anything with in music with a method. I think it leads to stagnation.
Right. And you don't read music. You have this ability, I've heard.
I can if I have to, but
you have to, but you prefer not to, because you have this phenomenon almost where it's almost like language, right? Like you hear music, and then just by hearing it, you can play it. When did you realize you had that?
Well, it's just the way I started from an early age. I learned music like language, so I soak up different vocabulary, different accents very quickly, and it's because I don't have the medium of the music in between. That can kind of that can get in the way of intuition. it's a really good tool to communicate to 80 musicians in an orchestra. But if you're just playing with a couple people, I prefer to play with people that don't need notation to understand what to do.
So if you don't follow a formula, like how do you write songs? Is every single experience different?
I just get a really, the melodies come all throughout the day, and then the ones that are really good, I'm like my own test subject.
Yeah.
So whatever sticks in my head, enough that I don't have to write it down or record it, is worthy of turning into a song.
It sounds like so much of the creative process, right, it happens between these 2 years for you. And I know you were long suspicious, it's fair to say, of producers. You self-produced a lot. And then eventually that broke. You got a great producer on this record. Who was the producer to sort of break that notion for you and make you reconsider working with somebody else?
The first producer I worked with was Tony Berg on Are You Serious? And it made me feel like we're all, like at the end of the day, it didn't all rest on my shoulders, which after a lot of records of that, it was nice. And it also felt like someone else is thinking about this, and he was really into like the nuts and bolts of like all this. There was a lot of music theory involved, and like the inner voices of the chords are just as important as the outer voices, and all the stuff that, I was kind of fascinated by. And so there's all different type of. I should probably only just self-produce what I learned from the last two production things was either I work with someone like that, or Paul, or Blake Mills, or like these really, really interesting musical minds, or I might as well just produce it myself.
Right.
Either they really get in there and try to change what I do in a way I've never thought of, or in this record I worked with Paul Butler, and I just liked he just grew up on the Isle of Wight and made analog records in a little shack on this island off the coast of England. And so I like that kind of self-taught analog thing, and he helped us nail this kind of live thing. But yeah, I don't know. I have some pretty strong feelings about how things should sound.
Yeah. Is it a fight in the studio? Or is it a tug of war? Like, what is it? You just trust them, so what they say goes, or what you say go? Like, how does that work?
Man, I don't know. It rarely gets contentious.
Yeah.
But you also get really exhausted after a few days, and you just want someone to help you make a decision. I mean, I don't know. I tend to, when I self-produce my records, I would throw a lot of records in the trash just because I went down the wrong path, and I would have to scrap it and start over. And that's, good and bad,
10 records, songs, I should say, wind up on the record here. Are you the type of artist where you start with a bunch and whittle it down, or are these 10 you went in with and you finish with?
I went in with 12 or 13, and 2 of them were just not hanging with the others.
Was that a cohesive issue, or was it a quality issue? Was it almost like, where do you even put this in the track list, or was it just like, these aren't as up to par as the others?
Maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I mean, there's one song that called Capital Crimes, which is the B-side of Bloodless. It's on a 7-inch, so not many people hear it, but it's a song I've been working on for years and years about capital punishment. It's kind of a heavy subject matter, and I was like, it just didn't quite sit with the other ones.
Yeah.
But I love the song.
Typically you ask an artist about their inspiration, they'll name like, a bunch of other artists, but you can find inspiration in anything. Like I think you've said before, like the screeching tires on a truck, you'll hear that, you'll think about a piece of music.
Yeah, I mean, walking in a city, especially a city where you don't know where you're going, can be really fertile, and just the noises coming out of windows, and like the brakes on a bus could be like a suspension over a certain chord you were hearing,
Let's get to these audience questions. The first one's going to come from right up front. What's your name and where are you from?
My name is Emma. I'm from Brooklyn. I was just wondering, how's the sock monkey doing? Where's the monkey hanging out these days?
Oh, the sock monkey is at home. He retired after a few years.
That's fair.
But he was with us on tour for a good while. He would sit underneath the spinny horn, and but yeah, I gave him to my son a few years ago, and he just hangs out in his room.
I'm glad he's doing okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Like he's enjoying retirement.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to one final studio audience question. Come from behind me.
Hi.
Hi.
I was wondering how important is silence for your creative process and just artistically overall?
I used to need it, and now I'm not like I have a studio that's separate from my house, but I don't like going there. I like being in the kitchen with the family and having things going on around me. It doesn't distract me very much. I lived in New York for a few years, and I found it a little distracting, a little hard to get in the zone here. But I'm not one that I don't know. Then if I go on vacation, vacations are good for business because I start writing like crazy as soon as I'm in a different environment that's a little more relaxed.
So for musical cues from like everyday family lifestyle, you get those from?
Yeah, I think I like being within earshot of somebody. That's my theory.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great question. You are going out on tour, a pretty big tour, extensive tour this year.
Mm-hmm.
And where can we find details to that? When does it kick off, actually?
Well, we go to Europe in June.
Okay.
And then the big U.S. tour is in the fall.
Right. You're doing King's Theater here in the city, if you're
Yeah.
watching locally.
Uh-huh.
And then National Sawdust, I think, too, right?
We just played National Sawdust last 2 nights.
Okay. I'm trying to keep track of you, Andrew.
Yeah. So we started off playing tiny rooms, Green Mill in Chicago, this great jazz room, and Largo in L.A., and just doing these intimate shows because it's good for morale
Almost
overall.
like testing out the record, seeing what works, what doesn't.
Sort of, but it's more like just starting with that intimacy with the audience is good.
Yeah.
I remember years ago, like, they wanted me to play Radio City right out of the gate, and I was like, I can't do that. I just got a feeling that it would break me.
Yeah.
So I just gotta I settled for Carnegie Hall.
Yeah. It's a fallback plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, going big and huge is like, I'm at a point where like, what is this path taking me to? Madison Square Garden or what? Like, it's gotta be gratifying.
Yeah. The moon.
Exactly.
Who knows? Well, thank you once again, guys. Join me in thanking Andrew here for stopping by. And if you're watching live on BuildSerious.com, Andrew's going to be a really nice guy. Stay with us because you're going to be performing 3 songs.
Mm-hmm.
What 3 songs? Stay tuned.